Kevin Andrews, good morning.
Good morning, John.
Will you challenge for the leadership?
I've said if there's a spill, then I'm prepared to stand.
And what numbers do you have?
I haven't counted numbers. All this has come about really in the last 12 to 24 hours. But that's the situation we're in, and I've said that I'm prepared to put my hand up.
And the people who are supporting you in your push, how do you read, then, the debate yesterday in the party room, which Malcolm Turnbull says resulted in him having a slim but workable majority of support on dealing with the government?
Well, I can only recount the facts in terms of the numbers. There were 73 or 74 speakers in the debate in the party room yesterday, and 41 of those speakers wanted to either delay a vote until after Copenhagen or to oppose what the government's proposing to do.
It's a deeply divided party by any measure. Even if you were to succeed in a spill motion, even if you were to succeed in a leadership change, you would still leave the party divided close to 50-50, one way or the other.
Look, unfortunately, this is an issue which there is quite deep divisions about, but we've got to find a way of working through this, and it can only be done by taking the confidence of the party room with the person who is the leader.
Yes, but the point I'm trying to get you to address is that the party seems divided, whoever the leader is, on this issue.
Well, it's not the first time that political parties have been divided, and the challenge, the burden of leadership, if you like, is to bring about unity in the party. Now, that has to be done, otherwise, to use that old phrase, I think, of Bob Hawke's, if you can't govern yourselves, you can't govern the nation.
Wilson Taki has said he'll call for a spill. What's the timeline then on the procedures today? I understand there's a shadow cabinet meeting as we speak.
I understand that Mr Taki has circulated a motion calling for a party room meeting tomorrow morning in which he would move a spill. He'll have a seconder first of all, will he? I believe so.
And then it'll go to a vote, and you think you've got the numbers?
Well, I don't know. It'll go to a vote, and there needs to be a majority for that to occur, and if there's a majority calling for a spill, all positions are declared vacant, and then nominations are called.
Two aspects of this I think warrant some further discussion, if I may hold you for just a little longer. First of all, there's the package and what's actually wrong with the package that was negotiated in the name of the Liberal Party. And the second issue is what it means for Liberal politics, which we'll come to in a moment. But with the deal that was struck between Ian Macfarlane and Penny Wong, what's wrong with it?
Well, many people are still very sceptical about this whole proposal. For example, just to take one area, the 750,000 or so small business operators in Australia. There's no doubt this is going to lead to increased costs for them. There's no compensation for them. If you look at the private power generators in Australia, this is going to lead to them having to write off billions of dollars of asset value and, have sovereign risk for investment in Australia. So there are very real concerns. And for ordinary Australians, whilst there is some compensation in the package, that compensation effectively runs out after a few years, and we'll be all paying for this for generations to come.
As is happening around the world.
Well, it's not happening around the world. That's part of the point why most people say these days, let's wait until after Copenhagen. I was in America last week, and I can tell you that there is no political appetite at all in Washington for doing anything about that this year, and probably not next year either.
So Australia should be one of those that reserves judgment rather than, as Kevin Rudd says, take a leadership role.
Well, with Mr Rudd, what's he going to achieve? He's going to achieve a massive impost on Australia. He's going to make us less competitive because other nations are not following suit, all for probably having, at best, a very slight decrease in emissions. We are such a small emitter by world standards that even after he does all of this, China will be building a few more power stations and will just simply put out more CO2 into the atmosphere than we're saving, if we save any at all.
Kevin Andrews, what does it mean for Conservative politics? During the John Howard Prime Ministership, we saw deep division over the Republic, deep division over reconciliation and native title, and I remember similar arguments about there being, irreconcilable differences on the side of Conservative politics in particular on each of those issues. But is this the one that could split the Liberal Party?
I don't believe it's going to split the Liberal Party. We are a broad church. We embrace a classic Liberal and a Conservative political tradition, and from time to time those two things are in tension. But The role of the leadership of the party is to bring together people who have disparate views and diverse views about subjects, to bring them together into a way in which we can work together. Now, we did that very successfully for well over a decade, particularly when we're in government. It can be done, and it has to be done again.
So is it a reflection on Malcolm Turnbull's style that he's failing to find any common ground between the two sides?
Well, I'm not going to make personal reflections on Mr Turnbull, but I'm just saying we can all see the state that we're in. We can read the polls. We know what people think at the present time, and it's in our hands to do something about it.
But if you roll Malcolm Turnbull over an emissions trading scheme and a package here, whoever takes over, whether it's you or someone else, is going to have almost as many people opposed on the other side of the debate as you negotiate into the future.
Well, the task of politics, John, is to bring about unity.
How do you find unity on something where people are so profoundly and fundamentally in disagreement?
Well, I think we've got to be creative and look at how we can do it. One proposition that was advanced yesterday was, well, can we all agree on just putting it off, having a further look at it, getting some more opinion about what the effect of all these amendments are, which I haven't even had a chance to read through them all at this stage, yet we're expected to vote on them in the next 24 hours. Can we just put it off? I don't think there's any great urgency in dealing with it this week. It's going to matter if we wait for another few weeks or another couple of months before we deal with it. I think the common sense view that most Australians would share, whether they're supporters of this ETS or not, is, well, what's the urgency? What's this indecent haste about?
Electorally, we're on the cusp of an election campaign. As we start the new calendar year after Christmas, Kevin Rudd will be looking at his options. Does that not in any way introduce some urgency or some discipline into the Liberal discussion?
Well, we're in a situation where the Prime Minister can effectively call an election at some stage, but there are constraints on that as well, because most Australians don't like early elections. They think that a government that's been elected should serve its full term.
But would a Kevin Andrews-led Liberal Party campaign to the next election on an climate sceptic platform?
Well, I would be campaigning, if I was leader, on practical results in terms of the climate, and balancing that up against the economic impulse on Australian families, Australian small businesses, and the competitiveness of our nation.
But you'd put yourself out there as a Liberal Party leader who is a climate sceptic and campaign accordingly, is that correct?
Well, I think there's a great deal of scepticism about this. I mean, we've had the revelation in the last few days or weeks that there has been what seems like manipulation of a lot of the scientific data. That hasn't been resolved yet at this stage. So I think people want to do something, but they're also very concerned that we do it in a way which doesn't leave Australia and Australians worse off.
All right, we will see what happens today. Perhaps the next time we speak you might be the leader of the opposition, Kevin Andrews.
Who knows, John?
Thank you for your time this morning.
Pleasure.
Kevin Andrews, Shadow Minister in Malcolm Turnbull's Shadow Cabinet, and putting up his hand saying if there's a spill, I'll offer myself up for the leadership.